You're listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, the place to learn about new technology and technological advances before they become mainstream. This podcast is sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. It's not about the destination. It's about going someplace you never thought possible. Go to imaginenext.ingrammicro.com to find out more. Let's get into it.
Welcome to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro. I'm your host, Keri Roberts, and my guests today are Justin Pugh, an Ingram Micro Solutions Executive, and Brian McKeon, the CEO of SimpleCom. Welcome, Justin and Brian. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Keri,
thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for having us.
So I want to start off with something pretty interesting because I was doing my research on both of you, and each of you studied criminal justice in college. And then Justin, you were in the military, and Brian, you were part of the police force. And I'm curious what brought each of you into this world of technology. So Brian, if you want to start off with your story, I'd love to hear it.
Wow, it's a long story. So I started my career in law enforcement with the New York Police Department back in the 80s. Worked there for several years. Wound up leaving the force because my wife, who I had married while I was on the force, decided that she didn't want to live in New York anymore. So we wound up moving south and moved to Florida, and I continued my career with an agency in Pinellas County, Florida. And from there, I worked my way through the ranks, patrol, detective, and then on to becoming a sergeant. And while I was a sergeant, I went through various places within the department, investigations, canine, et cetera, and wound up in administrative services. And I just had a knack for technology always, and particularly when I was in investigations. I was the guy that was in charge of the body bugs and microphones and cameras because I just had this affinity for technology. And I became a sergeant. They put me in charge of computer-aided dispatch and records and property, and there's a ton of technology on the administrative services side. And now this is in the 90s, and when laptop computers and wireless data was becoming very popular, and my chief tasked me with putting mobile data in our patrol cars. And, so I kind of stumbled into networking at that point, and I just became enamored with it. And I rolled out wireless data using cellular. At the time, this is now the early to mid 90s, rolled out a technology called cellular digital packet data. We were one of the first agencies in the state to roll that out. And I just became just so passionate about networking, particularly wireless networking. And we were very successful with it. And I had already had my time vested with the department. So I was qualified to retire. And I got a job offer from GTE Wireless to come work for them as a data solutions engineer. And I decided to put in my papers and retire, and I went to the dark side. I went to work for the carrier and do sales engineering throughout the Southeast, and I just fell in love with it, helping governments, public safety, fire, EMS, transit, just helping agencies deploy wireless data. And we merged with Bell Atlantic and became Verizon, so I was there for a little while. And then from there, went to work for Airlink Communications, and I was a field engineer for Airlink. And then I became the director of technical services for Airlink, handling all device certifications, and I was supervising the sales engineering and technical support team in North America. And Airlink merged with Sierra Wireless, and at that point, I left and started SimpleCom. So I like to tell people that my experience has been one as a customer of wireless data, working for the carrier, working for a hardware manufacturer, and now as a solution provider and systems integrator. So I've seen all four legs of the table, if you would, and I know what everybody's trying to accomplish when we're sitting at the table putting a solution together. We've got some empathy across the board. So there you go. So that's how a cop becomes the CEO of a technology company.
I love it. I love how everything is connected and kind of little by little, and you have all this experience. Justin, what about yourself from the military and now into technology as well?
Well, first of all, I'm a millennial, so I didn't know technology started until 2020. So, Brian, I didn't even know we had wireless stuff back in the 1980s and 90s. But anyway, no, my career started from the military. Of course, naturally, I joined the military right after 9/11. Fresh out of high school. I know that's hard to believe in 2001, but about 4.5 years later, my country called me. I answered the call. I joined the Army in 2006. I deployed to Afghanistan in 2007. And I, of course, came back home in the latter part of 2008 after a full 12-month, 13-month deployment in Afghanistan. And so once I left there, I continued, I finished my degree. I had put my degree on hold while in country, but I came back, finished my degree by 2010 in criminal justice. I had huge motivations to go to law school. In fact, I took the LSAT, scored in the top 90th percentile. And then life happens, right? Kids and school and, different events take place. And so I settled into a more agrarian, father, life. And I, left the military. I did my 10 years or so, ended my contract and came on to the civilian side of the house. And I started at Verizon as a lowly old retail sales consultant in 2010, worked there until 2012. But mainly my experience came through AT&T, where I spent about 7 years there as both a retail consultant and a store manager, my last 2 years at the company. And then I tell you an interesting story about how life works. I was really kind of in a very kind of a shifting place. AT&T had gone through like a 2.0 transformation. Of course, naturally, they were kind of streamlining the business. And so they were, shedding a lot of weight in a lot of different areas. And a lot of that, one of those areas was retail in a lot of our more lower level stores. And even though we were a top performing store, our store wasn't voluminous enough to maintain our staff. And so over time, they began to get rid of my position. And so I transitioned over to Cenex, where I cut my teeth in the Verizon co-sell program under Scott Eaton and Victor Roman and Josh Lee and Joy Brown, all those folks you all know probably very well. They taught me everything I know about Verizon co-sell mobility, the channel, and all of the great knowledge of like folks like Brian. One of my very, very first meetings at Cenex was with Brian McKeon at a restaurant. I don't know what restaurant we went to that day, Brian, but I do know we sat there and talked for 3 hours. It was one of the more transformative meetings of my career, because I got to sit down with one of the smartest men in the business at what he does. And so that's what brought me to Ingram Micro. My time at Cenex came to an end. I wanted to grow more. I wanted to be a leader in the business. And so from there, I came over to Ingram. They offered me the ability to be their solutions executive for Verizon. And here I am.
I love that. I love the two that we have on this show together. Laura, who helps produce this, always brings great people on. And it's wonderful to have two people that have a similar background, have known each other for a while. It's wonderful to see. And now, Justin, Ingram Micro has this program. It's called Ignite, and it's an exclusive co-sell partnership support mobility that focuses on resellers in scaling and promoting enterprise solutions, which Brian's company, SimpleCom, is a part of. Can you tell us more about this program and why you think it's such a great asset to resellers?
Yeah, our program is an engine for enterprise growth, right? So Verizon and all of the other carriers see value in the channel, but nobody really works within the channel the way Verizon does. We pretty much have the channel not to ourselves, but we are very competitive in the channel. Our program is a bi-directional device referral program whereby we pay a commission to our resellers, or our reseller partners at Ingram Micro, to sell more enterprise solutions to their end user clients that, of course, have Verizon connectivity attached to it. This may be in the form of COVID-related response solutions such as thermal scanning, maybe voice over IP for work from home solutions. Of course, Brian mentioned a lot with law enforcement, so our public sector space is unmatched, right? Even with our competitors out there with their own networks and their own broadband channels, Verizon still owns about 60 to 70% of the public sector market space. It's because we do enterprise solutions for our public safety officials so well. And our program is designed to help enable and to help our partners truly realize that promise of technology that we talk about here at Ingram. And so by that, we help them scale via support, and we help them scale via untapped revenue. So all the revenues in the business that they make is gross profit. There's no cost to being in our business. And so folks like Brian can really benefit from all the margin that come from the solutions that they develop with the help of our program.
Now, Brian, you're the CEO of SimpleCom, and your philosophy at your company is you understand the need and the right solution it becomes obvious. Your company simplifies fixed and mobile communication challenges for both carriers and customers. Can you tell us a little bit more about SimpleCom's philosophy and how it does this?
You said it well, right? Understand the need. And I like to say to my team, the right product or solution unveils itself. There's really not a lot of selling that has to take place. It becomes very obvious to the customer, and particularly to us, that this technology, whether it be a wireless data modem or an antenna or some sort of installation, is really the way to go for the customer. And this kind of gets back to the thing we were mentioning earlier, having been at all four legs of the stool. As we get brought into an engagement by Ingram or by Verizon, some partner has brought us in, Sierra, Cradlepoint, Digi, and somebody is saying, here, we've got a potential customer and they seem to have a need. Can you help them put together a solution? So we do that. We sit down with the customer and first and foremost evaluate their needs, regardless of who brought us to the table, right? We want to be somewhat dispassionate when it comes to advocating for a specific path early on in the conversation. We want to just understand the requirements. Form follows function, right? If you're asking me to build your house, I'm going to ask you what the size of your family is and how many rooms you're going to need and what other things go on in that house. And then I'll help you design the house. I'm not going to say, yes, you want a house? I got a 4-bedroom house that's going to work for you. That would be a ridiculous statement, right? So form follows function. The function in this sense is their customer's requirements. So we ask those tough questions and we unpack their needs and we go further and further into their solution until we get to a point where it becomes very obvious what the right solution is. And at that point, once we know those details, particularly because we do so much in wireless data, right? It becomes obvious to us what the right router is, who the right company is, the right manufacturer, who that partner is, the antenna, what sort of enclosure, what and how the devices need to be provisioned and configured. Who's going to handle the installation and what does that installation need to look like? What's the planning associated with that? Who's going to support all this when it's all said and done? We follow a mantra of design, deploy, and support, right? We do all of that. We will do as much or as little for customers as they need. So if all they need is make the right recommendation for this piece of hardware and I'd just like to buy the modem and then we'll take it from there, great. That's a great customer and we support people like that all day long. We just ship a box and they design the solution themselves and they're on their way. But for a lot of customers, once they find out what we're capable of, they decide to go with that whole design, deploy, and support model and just let us handle the whole thing. Because that allows them to focus on their core business. If we understand their requirements, we're going to put the right solution in place. If they trust that the right solution is coming, they get to focus on how that solution is going to be deployed and not deploying it. We can't do for customers what they can do for themselves in terms of running the core business. They can reduce cost, optimize their processes, innovate when it comes to their business, whether that be in manufacturing or fast food or public safety. But we can handle the communications piece. We take that off their plate and they trust that that's being done and being done right and it's fully supported. And we stay in our wheelhouse, in our lane, if you would, and they get to stay in their lane. And now we're partners for life. Most of our customers have been customers for 5, 6, 8, 10 years. We go in for the long haul. But it all starts with understanding their need. And when they hear the kind of conversation we have, the level of trust just starts to open up. They share more, and then they feel like their concerns are being met. And that trust just builds into a long-term relationship.
Yeah, I think it's an important part you're making and saying that you need to really just listen to what the potential customer needs instead of forcing something. So I love that that's what you're all about. You also work with companies like Verizon, as you stated earlier. How do you help their customers?
It's the same thing, right? We use that same philosophy as we're engaging with the reps. So we've had hundreds of reps that call us on a regular basis with opportunities. And to them, it's a matter of closing and activation and having the right data plan, right? They're hoping to achieve their metrics, their sales goals, their quota and objectives, right? But they know us enough to know that when they bring it to us, that at the end of the day, it's going to be right. So they come to us and say, listen, I have this. I'm not sure what to do with it. I don't know what the right technology is. Can I trust you to handle this while I go find more opportunities? And that's exactly what we tell them, right? Go do your job, go prospect, We'll handle the qualification and then implementation. So that sense of understanding the need starts with them. Tell us what your customers told you. Tell us what you know. And then when we unpack that, internal information that the rep has about the customer, their project, what they're trying to accomplish, some other nuances that may be associated with the account, we get that information from the Verizon rep or other carrier rep, and we are very clear about what their objectives are and what we think is going to meet the customer's needs, and then we engage the customer. We do so side by side, so we're always with them. We don't take a throw it over the fence approach to things. We want them to stay engaged with their customer. We just handle all the heavy lift. And that sense of partnership, but we're taking on the hard work, is really what continually brings them back to us, because we just have their needs in mind as well as the customer's needs in mind. And it's that blend where those things come together where we have the most success.
Now, after being a CEO for so many years, do you have any favorite stories of how you've helped your customers and that keep you loving what you're doing year after year?
Yeah, I think the favorite stories are the ones where the customer came to us with a nugget of a challenge. And as we sort of pulled the thread, we found that the chance of them accomplishing their goals by themselves was probably very slim. And when we were able to just encourage them to let it go, if you would, and let us take it, and sort of put them in the passenger seat while we sat in the driver's seat and we put the solution together. I think of a couple of them. We had a municipality here in North Carolina, and they just had a very large automated water metering project that they had bit off more than they can chew when it came to deployment. And, it's one of those classic pole top metering projects where the water meters are upfitted at the residential and commercial locations, and then there's a pole top device. And somehow, I don't know how, the idea of who the cellular carrier was going to be and how that data was going to be transported never got brought up. And the technology started getting deployed, and they had no connectivity because the carrier they chose had no presence in that area. So here they are behind the eight ball, and the embedded cellular modem in that metering technology was only designed for that carrier. It would never work anywhere else. So the customer is investing $1 million and change in this project, and they've got egg on their face because they can't deploy it. And it was a panic. And they came to Verizon and said, how do we solve this? And Verizon said, we don't know, but we know who can. And they brought it to us. And in very short order, in a matter of a week, we had designed a solution. They moved forward with us. And then we actually built radio modules, control panels, timing controls, all kinds of things they would need to have a 24/7 resilient solution on the top of a pole throughout an entire municipal area here in North Carolina. And the customer couldn't be happy. And that was a project that we implemented in 2010, 2011. And they're still a customer to this day. As they deploy more solutions and more projects and need replacements for that stuff, they consistently come to us. And then finally, another one was a quick serve restaurant that was struggling with maintaining connectivity so they could process credit cards. And they were already a customer of ours, barring an occasional cellular modem here or there. And the IT director came to us one day and said, you're one of the only technology vendors we have that just seems to be consistent and always there and answers the phone and has great support. We'd like to sit down with you and see what you could do for us to solve a connectivity problem. And I won't bore you with the details, but when we looked at their problem was infrastructure. They just had no plan and no consistency and too many different devices at different locations with different configurations. And we agreed to take over the entire restaurant chain. And today that's 300 locations, and SimpleCom provides all the technology and the services and manages the entire thing. It's essentially a uptime as a service. Customer has never bought a piece of hardware ever again. They simply just say, I just need that restaurant up. SimpleCom puts in what we choose. We choose the connectivity, we choose the carrier, and we provide the support 24/7. So when a restaurant goes down at 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday, for some reason, They call us and we're out there first thing the next morning and we get the restaurant back up, and it's all part of an entire managed service program. So my team has learned to love those challenges. Let's take on the hard stuff. Let's go where no one else goes. There's a lot of people selling wireless data products on the market, as you well know. Plenty of companies that got websites selling cellular modems and antennas. But there's just not a lot of companies that take on the heavy lift and the ownership of the customer's success. And I think that's where we've carved out a reputation and a niche. And that's what keeps me engaged. Getting back to the question, the second half of that question, what keeps me loving what we do after so many years, it's that. Bring us the hard stuff. We'll take the easy stuff all day long, right? We'll sell a cradle point of Sierra wireless modem and an antenna in a box and ship it to somebody, and just like anyone else would. But quite frankly, it's taking on more of the customer's challenge and developing that long-term relationship where we excel, and it's really what we love.
And there's an element of creativity to that as well, which is great.
Yeah, problem solving, right? My guys are engineers, right? These guys are electrical engineers, computer engineers. They love solution design and they love problem solving, right? It's boring just in educating someone on the phone about how to reset a password or change a credential or just some minor stuff. The hard stuff, the real, truly hard stuff, when we get into things like complicated VPNs and SD-WAN and split routing on network circuits, that's where my guys just thrive. They want the hard stuff because they like the challenges that keep them up at night. They might not say it. I can tell you I know them well enough to know they do. They really love that hard stuff. And it's what we build our reputation on. I think that's why we're even on this call, because I think Justin and staff at Ingram and team at Verizon, they realize what we're capable of. And that's why the partnership is as deep and as wide as it is.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I love to hear there's kind of this partnership between three different companies working so well together. As we're thinking about the future, the question we ask all of our guests on this show is, where do you see technology going within the next year? And Justin, I'll start with you on your answer to this question.
Yeah. Wow, that is a loaded question. Where's technology headed in the future? So, boy, post-COVID, I would have a different, pre-COVID, I'd have a different answer for you. But boy, post-COVID, the answer for me is, I don't know. There's so many avenues, so many areas of opportunity for technology. Of course, naturally with 5G, we'll have a more automated and a more connected community, or a more connected globe with 5G. But that's more of a business product, not on the consumer end from a solutions perspective. But there are so many, and this may not answer your question, and Brian might give you a more specific answer. But I see us from a 5G perspective, we're moving more product, more automated, more autonomous. I'm thinking, of course, more connected. We're data driven. More of our activity will be at the edge. Almost all of it will be at the edge. And so I think technology next year and going into the future is a very, very wide landscape and very, very wide canvas to paint. So Brian, question back at you, since you're right at the front lines of it, where do you see it going from a specific perspective? And maybe I hope I didn't step on you, Keri, by the way.
No, I thank you for the opportunity to weigh in there. I started out in wireless data in the 90s, right? And anybody who's been around that long will tell you every year was going to be the year of wireless data, right? Every single year, we all talked about it. And it never happened. I don't care who you are. If you were selling CDPD and selling Sierra wireless modems and IBM candlesticks and anything else that was out there at the time, those guys are laughing right now. Every year was going to be the year where wireless data took off. And it never was a single year. It really has just finally gotten to the point where it is pervasive. And we have yet to even hit the hockey stick. where I see this all going, first of all, the internet is the core, right? It's the backbone to the connectivity. We're connecting applications with devices in the field, whether those be users or people or cars, whatever it is. So the internet provides that core infrastructure for networking. And that's been the thing that has really driven wireless data to another level. The thing I see is the decabling, the decopperizing of America. And that's happening as we speak. LTE as primary has never been so viable. You know, I've been doing cellular failover now since 1XRT. And it was never really useful beyond just out of band management, you know, just trying to get remote access to equipment so I could maybe troubleshoot or fix something. LTE has really enabled cellular data as primary connectivity, particularly LTE-A and LTE-A Pro, as we move into these new iterations to get 100 megs, 110, 115, 120 megs down, 20, 30 plus megs up. That's a viable connection, right? For a small primary connection, a primary connection for a small to medium-sized office. And as LTE on the 4G side continues to iterate, continues to improve, and they squeeze more efficiency out of that network, and they make it more pervasive, the need for physical circuits, DSL, you know, lower end cable connections, it's just LTE provides real competition. Then here comes 5G. And I think the landscape is about to change dramatically, and wireless is just going to be synonymous with connectivity. People will, you know, my daughter doesn't remember a day where she was ever out of communication. Doesn't understand the concept of a payphone. Doesn't understand the concept of, and she's in her late 20s, so doesn't understand the concept of ever being anywhere with other people and not having someone have a phone. Doesn't understand the concept. I think in the near future, no one will ever remember what it was like to connect where that solution wasn't wireless. And that is it is both challenging and exciting at the same time. And that very fact is what's going to enable a whole revolution in connectivity in rural or quasi-rural areas. Rural broadband will never take off as long as it requires copper in the ground. The idea that we could bring connectivity, fiber connectivity, to a specific region, and then from there branch out and use wireless as a backhaul to reach rural areas and expand the footprint of connectivity and open up the opportunities for IoT and for personal connectivity to sort of wipe out the digital divide, if you would, for people that live in rural areas. It's happening. It's happening right in front of our eyes. And I think that's the new electrification of America, right? It's the broadbanding of America, and it's going to happen because of wireless, and it's going to happen because of companies like Verizon, who are at the forefront of making that expansion a reality. So that's, to me, where I see things going: pervasive and wireless. There you go.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, you know, if people want to connect with you, Brian, learn more about what you do and your company, where is the best place for people to do that?
Oh, yeah, just the website is probably the best place to go. SimpleCom.pro, www.simple, SimpleCom as in Michael, .pro. And from there, find out what we're doing, get to know the team, and certainly reach out to us to see how we can help you evaluate your needs and see if we can't come up with a solution that's going to solve your problems.
And Justin, if people want to learn more about the Ignite program at Ingram, where can they do that?
I would love for you all to reach out to me at ignite@ingrammicro.com. That is Ignite, IGNITE, at ingrammicro.com. I would love to engage with any of you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both so much for being here. I think it's great to hear your background. There's a lot of connection between the two of you, what you're building together with both of your companies. So thank you so much for your knowledge today.
You're welcome. Pleasure being here.
Keri.
Thank you. Justin, great talking to you, buddy.
Great talking to you too, brother. See you soon.
Man. See you soon. All right. Take care. Bye, guys. Thanks, Keri.
If you like this episode or have a question, join the discussion on Twitter at Ingram TechSoul with the hashtag B2B Tech Talk. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro.
You've been listening to B2B Tech Talk with Ingram Micro, hosted by Keri Roberts. This episode was sponsored by Ingram Micro's Imagine Next. B2B Tech Talk is a joint production with Sweetfish Media and Ingram Micro. Ingram Micro production handled by Laura Burton and Christine Fan. To not miss an episode, subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform.